episode, we're going to be talking about sourdough. I'm going to show you how to feed and make your start the night before and how to turn it into these two beautiful fresh loaves the next day. So come along with me as we make sourdough. From last night, my sourdough is all poofy now that I've fed it and let it sit overnight. And along with that, my start has been fed. And this is Cosmo. Cosmo is a 2-year-old's flour milk-fed start. I only have to use him and feed him once a week. That way I don't have to worry about trying to do anything with the discards. So that's been really nice to have. And I've made everything from cookies to cakes to cinnamon rolls to raisin bread. And I plan on making English muffins. Oh, and I've made pizza with him and blueberry muffins. And I hope on making more things with sourdough. So to help your sourdough rise in the oven after we mix the remaining ingredients, my suggestion is to warm your bowl up. So before you put it in here in your draft-free place, I have a double oven and I throw my bread in the bottom for proofing. And I do that by first putting it in there and then proofing it. So when it's ready, all I have to do is take it out, grease it, and then put the dough in here and leave it sit for about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how big the bread gets. So let me do that now. Now for the fun part. So in here I have my food for the yeast. I have 3 tablespoons of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. Add that in. And sometimes when that happens and I stir it, it'll start to bubble up, which is pretty cool to watch. Stir that in. Next, I'm gonna add my fat, which is vegetable oil. It's also 3 tablespoons. That's how I can memorize this recipe so well, because it's literally 2 flour, 2 water, 1 sourdough. And the next day, it's 3 sugar, 3 fat, 1 teaspoon salt, and then flour until your dough is no longer wet and you can knead it nicely. And the reason I say that you add flour until your dough is done is because sometimes on a humid day like today, when it's pouring rain, and it has been for a while, you may need more flour because of the humidity in the air. Sometimes in the summertime, you might use less flour because it's so dry and there is no humidity in the air. That mixed up, and then I add about a cup flour at a time. That way my bowl doesn't become overwhelmed and I don't end up with lumps of flour or pockets of flour inside my dough. And sourdough is really one of those things where a lot of people are like, oh my goodness, sourdough, it's scary. I used to think that too, until I realized a lot of your wait time with sourdough is just waiting, literally. I get my start ready at night so I can make whatever in the morning, like cinnamon rolls or biscuits. I put everything in there, let it feed, and then the next morning you just add the remainder of your ingredients, roll it out and go. It's really not as scary as you think. The only thing that seems to be scary is the start. Everyone's afraid they're gonna kill a start or that they're not gonna have time for it. Well, there's places where you can get a dried start and you just add the ingredients to liven it. There are places that do it for free. I know places, some bakeries will sell sourdough start. You could ask someone who you know has sourdough to give you a start. But the big thing is within the first 24 hours of getting your start going, if you choose to do so by hand, you should see some form of fermentation. And that is due to the bacteria level in your house. If you go to make a start and it takes a very long time, your house might be too sterile for it to start. And that's another reason why sourdough tastes so different in some areas. It's because of the bacteria in the dirt and the air that creates it. As you can see, the sourdough is starting to come together. It's starting to form a ball. Add some more flour. And I'm going to start actually mixing this by hand. And while I'm mixing by hand, we'll come back when the dough is ready to be plopped out on the countertop and kneaded by hand. So now I'm just flouring my countertop. I always keep a little bit in a bowl. Dough out. Kneading. There's a lot of different ways people knead that they like to knead. Basically, you're looking for a spongy texture. You want to, when you're pressing on the bread, it bounces back. So like that's springy, indents, they spring back. That's a little slow. So I'm going to keep kneading. Some people aren't very strong, so they'll set a kneading limit to basically get that gluten activated. And this is literally how gluten is formed, is by the push and pull and the mixing of the wheat in your batter. Me, myself, I am not concerned about the whole knead for 7 minutes or 5 minute thing. I push pretty hard on my dough, and mainly that's due to how I offset all the baking of my sweets. I'm now going to take my beautiful sourdough. I'm going to plop it in a preheated bowl with some cooking spray and let it proof rise the first time for about 2 hours or so. And something you want to do is take the dough and put it in and then toss it over. That way the whole thing gets coated evenly and it won't stick to the sides of your bowl. And when we come back, we'll be splitting it into loaves. Now that our dough has raised significantly, I always take some cooking spray, spray my hands. I'm not worried about my cookie sheet. If I was using parchment paper, I would use that. I'd spray it down, but since I'm using a silicone mat, I'm not gonna worry about it. Kind of deflate the dough, and then I'm going to split it in half. And you don't really want to tear, you kind of want to squeeze and pinch And then just kind of roll it into a ball, like so. Anyways, here are our 2 loaves. I'm going to put them back in a draft-free spot. You can put saran wrap over them and a tea towel to keep them safe. I'm gonna put these back in my proofing oven, and then in about 45 minutes, we're going to take them out, score them, brush them with water, and bake them. So it's been about 45 minutes, and as you can see, I got some beautiful sourdough loaves. Now I'm gonna preheat the oven to 375, and then when the oven's done preheating, I'm going to cut them, put some score lines in them, brush them or spray them with water, and then bake them. Okay, now that the oven is preheated, I don't have one of those fancy little scoring knives, so what I like to do is just put a big X as best as I can in both loaves, and then from there I spray them down with water. And basically this is what gives your sourdough that awesome outside crunchy texture. Some people like brushing the cold water on. Some people put a pan of water underneath the bread, but I like spraying. So I'll get these in the oven. We'll put them in there for about 32 to 38 minutes, depending on the cook time. And throughout the process, I usually spray them down about 3 times and rotate them. So it's been about 9 minutes, and you want to make sure you don't disturb it for the first 7 minutes. Otherwise you could have some serious issues with the dough deflating. But now I'm going to take it out like so. I'm going to spray them down, especially in that crust, because that's how you get that nice separation of those fancy breads. Pop them back in. Let them continue to cook for about another 8 minutes and spray it again. Okay, now we're at it again. You can see that it's starting to turn a nice golden brown color. And this will actually be the last time that I soak this and put the water to it. And I will let it continue to cook. The first timing round has gone off. Now I'm gonna check these babies out. Let's see. I'm gonna rotate them and I'm gonna give them another 3 minutes. Okay, they smell done. They're nice, crispy, and golden brown. Let's see if it passed the test. That's very hot. They do. They passed the test. Look at this awesome color. Front side, bottom side. So now I'm gonna let them sit here for about 5 minutes and then transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. Now I've transferred my sourdoughs to a wire rack, and now I have to let them cool for an hour. Why? Well, the steam inside is going to continue to cook the bread, making sure that the inside is dense and soft, just like sourdough should be. Well, now that our loaves are done and cooled, let's take a look. We have very crispy crust. It's nice and it's golden brown on both sides. Perfect for sandwich, toast, grilled cheese, or if you wanted, you could cut slices and make pizza slices out of this by baking it in the oven with pizzas. But remember to eat up.